Neville Goddard, Seed Time and Harvest, A Mystical View of the Scriptures, 1956. Dedication to all of you who apply what you read in this book, and by doing so, create a finer world. We are on our way, and we will arrive, I promise you. Chapter 1, The End of a Golden String. I give you the end of a golden string. Only wind it into a ball. It will lead you in at heaven's gate, built in Jerusalem's wall. Blake. In the following essays, I have tried to indicate certain ways of approach to the understanding of the Bible and the realization of your dreams, that ye be not slothful, but followers of them who through faith and patience inherit the promises. Hebrews 6:12. Many who enjoy the old familiar verses of Scripture are discouraged when they themselves try to read the Bible as they would any other book, because, quite excusably, they do not understand that the Bible is written in the language of symbolism. Not knowing that all of its characters are personifications of the laws and functions of the mind, that the Bible is psychology rather than history, they puzzle their brains over it for a while and then give up. It is all too mystifying. To understand the significance of its imagery, the reader of the Bible must imaginatively awake. There it is. Punchline already. To understand the significance of the imagery in the Bible, the reader of the Bible must imaginatively awake. According to the Scriptures, we sleep with Adam and wake with Christ. That is, we sleep collectively and wake individually. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. Genesis 2:21. If Adam, or generic man, remember this, Adam, or generic man, is in a deep sleep, then his experiences as recorded in the Scriptures must be a dream. Only he who is awake can tell his dream. And only he who understands the symbolism of dreams can interpret the dream. And they said one to another, did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us by the way, and while he opened to us the Scriptures? Luke 24:32. The Bible is a revelation of the laws and functions of mind expressed in the language of that twilight realm into which we go when we sleep. Because the symbolical language of this twilight realm is much the same for all men, the recent explorers of this realm, human imagination, call it the collective unconscious. I have to go back. This is itching me. According to the Scriptures, we sleep with Adam and wake with Christ. That is, we sleep collectively and wake individually. And you know, in my last 2 videos, maybe 3, I discussed my own dreams, my lucid dream, my out-of-body dream, and my hearing of the lecture, Pattern Man, 1968 lecture. There's 2 lectures, 1968, 1971, but the 1968 version, Neville goes into the innocence, the experienced, and the awakened imagination as 3 types of experiences we're having basically before resurrection. Resurrection meaning you return home. Where is home, by the way? What is this thing called home? I am all that is God, right in the center. That's home. That's where we are every time we close our eyes and say, I am. We are home. So, here's a self-concept, another. There's many, many versions of you out there. And in my Father's house are many mansions, all of which can be occupied by you. If you change your self-concept, you can occupy a new mansion. You can occupy a new reality. That's home right there. I am all that is God, from whence you came. Let's see here. We sleep with Adam and we wake with Christ. Innocence, I'm going to return to the Pattern Man lecture for a minute. Innocence is when we are all asleep with Adam. And when we gain experience by having multiple different self-concepts. It's the awakened imagination that takes that experience level and puts the gas down, puts the throttle, the acceleration, puts it in momentum. Awakened imagination is when you know your imagination is creating what you see. Again, it's the pointed finger with the three fingers pointed back at you. You know what you're looking at and what you're pointing at is your creation. That's when you are going into the awakened imagination. So then you can create by imagining lovingly for everything. As Dr. Hugh Lin stated, I have the quote framed in my office, fall in love with everything. Dr. Hugh Lin. Dr. E. Haleakala Hugh Lin was the doctor that helped carry on Ho'oponopono to be still understood after Morna Simeona passed away, who was his teacher. But Dr. Hugh Lin was the guy who used I love you, thank you, and on the patients of, I think it was a Honolulu Psychological Hospital. I believe it was Honolulu. I could be wrong. It's on Oahu, I believe. Anyway, by using I love you, thank you towards the patients without ever meeting them, they ultimately became healed of their dilemmas, of their psychological dilemmas that they had. And they eventually went on furlough, work furlough, freedom furlough, and they ultimately were released because they all got better because this one man, Dr. Hugh Lin, said, I love you, thank you to them individually while he looked at their file. It's a very wonderful story. It's a very, very recent story, and it is another form of what is known as imagine lovingly. It's just, I love you and thank you. It's gratitude and it's love. It's very, very simple. When you look at the innocence and you look at the experienced and then you look at the awakened imagination, we want to get to the point where we awaken our imagination so we know we can make the impression with our imagination and then have the life we want to live become in our reality. And that's where we make the world better because we become better and we become an example of that. According to the scriptures, we sleep with Adam and we awake with Christ. That is, we sleep collectively, the innocence, and we wake individually through experience, and we realize that he is here. I am him. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. Genesis 2:21. This is very worth repeating, and I want to make a huge point of it, because you're asleep, you don't really know. You could care less most of the time. You're having your experience, and that's all fine and dandy. If Adam or a generic man is in a deep sleep, then his experiences as recorded in the scriptures must be a dream. Only he who is awake can tell his dream. And only he who understands the symbolism of dreams can interpret the dream. And here's a Luke quote, 24:32. And they said one to another, did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us, by the way, and while he opened to us the scriptures? Luke 24:32. The Bible is a revelation of the laws and functions of mind expressed in the language of that twilight realm into which we go when we sleep. Because the symbolical language of this twilight realm is such the same for all men, the recent explorers of this realm, human imagination, call it the collective unconscious. The purpose of this book, however, is not to give you a complete definition of biblical symbols or exhaustive interpretations of its stories. All I hope to have done is to have indicated the way in which you are most likely to succeed in realizing your desires. What things soever ye desire can be obtained only through the conscious, voluntary exercise of imagination in direct obedience to the laws of the mind, or of mind, excuse me. Somewhere within this realm of imagination, there is a mood, a feeling of the wish fulfilled, which, if appropriated, means success to you. This realm, this Eden, your imagination, is vaster than you know and repays exploration. I give you the end of a golden string. You must wind it into a ball. There it is, chapter 1. The fascinating piece here for me is the dreaming aspect of Adam and where does he awake? Because as Neville has said in lectures, Adam, you don't know, there is nowhere where it says in Scripture where we awake, where we awaken, except through Neville's experience and now communicating it, you awake individually. When you wake up and realize I am him, that is awake. When you're watching and binging on these videos per se, or reading Neville or listening to his lectures, it's all good. That is when you have become awakening. You are awakening from within. You are going to have that second birth from here. You've come from below, now you'll come from above. That is when you realize I am him. When you realize I am him, that's when you put consciously the law to work for yourself. You start to make impressions on your subconscious. Consciously you do this while you're falling asleep. Then the consummation of the conscious and subconscious happens, giving birth to the Son, which is your new experience. Automatic. You don't even have to worry about this part. There's no part where you have to drive stakes for the railroad all day. You're simply doing this while you're either sleeping or falling asleep or you're in meditation. That sounds like some hard work. Wow. The end of a golden string. I give you the end of a golden string. You must wind it into a ball. This realm, this Eden, your imagination, is vaster than you know and repays exploration. Wonderful, wonderful chapter. Okay, that's chapter 1. End of a golden string. Man, what a great beginning. Seed time and harvest. Okay, we'll see you in the next chapter. Neville Goddard, Seed time and harvest. Chapter 2, the 4 mighty ones. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into 4 heads. Genesis 2:10. And every one had 4 faces. Ezekiel 10:14. I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. Daniel 3:25. 4 mighty ones are in every man. Blake. Ooh, this looks like it's going to get really good. The 4 mighty ones constitute the selfhood of man, or God in man. There are 4 mighty ones in every man, but these 4 mighty ones are not 4 separate beings, separated one from the other, as are the fingers of the hand. The 4 mighty ones, remember, the 4 mighty ones each time, as stated, are in quotes. 4 mighty ones. The 4 mighty ones are 4 different aspects of his mind, and differ from one another in function and character, without being 4 separate selves inhabiting one man's body. The 4 mighty ones may be equated with the 4 Hebrew characters, which form the 4-letter mystery name of the creative power. I would draw these characters. Matt, let me just attempt these characters. I am no scribe, but these are the 4 characters I imagine I see when I see here. Of course, I'm not a calligraphist either. This looks like pi. These are the 4 characters he's describing. Okay. The 4 mighty ones may be equated with the 4 Hebrew characters, these, which form, there's a dot here, which form the 4-lettered mystery name of the creative power, derived from and combining within itself the past, present, and future forms of the verb to be. Again, please excuse me if you can write this better than I, because it's my first time. First time writing a Hebrew word, or 4-lettered mystery name of the creative power. The tetragrammaton is revealed as the symbol of creative power in man, of the creative power in man. I am. The creative 4 functions in man, reaching forth to realize in actual material phenomena qualities latent in itself. We can best understand the four mighty ones by comparing them to the four most important characters in the production of a play. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. As You Like It, Act 2, Scene 7. The producer, the author, the director, and the actor. The producer, the author, the director, and the actor are the four most important characters in the production of a play. In the drama of life, the producer's function is to suggest the theme of a play. This he does in the form of a wish, such as, I wish I were successful. I wish I could take a trip. I wish I were married. And so on. But to appear on the world's stage, the general themes must somehow be specified and worked out in detail. It is not enough to say, I wish I were successful. That is too vague. Successful at what? However, the first mighty one only suggests a theme. The dramatization of the theme is left to the originality of the second mighty one, the author. In dramatizing the theme, the author writes only the last scene of the play. But this scene he writes in detail. The scene must dramatize the wish fulfilled. He mentally constructs as lifelike a scene as possible of what he would experience had he realized his wish. When the scene is clearly visualized, the author's work is done. The author went to the end. The third mighty one in the production of life's play is the director. The director's tasks are to see that the actor remains faithful to the script and to rehearse him over and over again until he's natural in the part. This function may be likened to a controlled and consciously directed attention, an attention focused exclusively on the action, which implies that the wish is already realized. Faithful to the script, and to rehearse him over and over again until he is natural in the part. Rehearse it over and over again until it feels natural to be in the part. And then this will become here, or you will go there. Either way, natural in the part. The form of the fourth is like the Son of God, human imagination, the actor. This fourth mighty one performs within himself, in imagination, the predetermined action which implies the fulfillment of the wish. This function does not visualize or observe the action. This function actually enacts the drama and does it over and over again until it takes on the tones of reality. Without the dramatized vision of fulfilled desire, the theme remains a mere theme and sleeps forever in the vast chambers of unborn themes. Nor, without the cooperant attention obedient to the dramatized vision of fulfilled desire, will the vision perceived attain objective reality. These four mighty ones are the four quarters of the human soul. The first is Jehovah's King, who suggests the theme. The second is Jehovah's servant, who faithfully works out the theme in a dramatic vision. The third is Jehovah's man, who was attentive and obedient to the vision of fulfilled desire, who brings the wandering imagination back to the script 70 times 7. The form of the fourth is Jehovah himself, who enacts the dramatized theme on the stage of the mind. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Philippians 2:5 and 6. The drama of life is a joint effort of the four quarters of the human soul. All that you behold, though it appears without, it is within in your imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. Blake. All that we behold is a visual construction contrived to express a theme which has been dramatized, rehearsed, and performed elsewhere. What we are witnessing on the stage of the world is an optical construction devised to express the themes which have been dramatized, rehearsed, and performed in the imaginations of men. These four mighty ones constitute the selfhood of man, or God in man. And all that man beholds, though it appears without, are but shadows cast upon the screen of space, optical constructions contrived by selfhood to inform him in regard to the themes which he has conceived, dramatized, rehearsed, and performed within himself. The creature was made subject unto vanity, that he may become conscious of selfhood and its functions. For with consciousness of selfhood and its functions, he can act to a purpose. He can have a consciously self-determined history. Without such consciousness, he acts unconsciously and cries to an objective God to save him from his own creation. Fascinating, isn't it? O Lord, how long shall I cry, and thou wilt not hear? Even cry out unto thee of violence, and thou wilt not save. Habakkuk 1:2. When man discovers that life is a play which he himself is consciously or unconsciously writing, he will cease from the blind self-torture of executing judgment upon all others. This happened to me after the first year of studying Neville very, very intensely. You really literally stop judging others. Everybody is your brother and your sister. You just stop the division. Division disappears completely. Instead, he will rewrite the play to conform to his ideal, for he will realize that all changes in the play must come from the cooperation of the four mighty ones within himself. They alone can alter the script and produce the change. All the men and women in the world are merely players and are as helpless to change his play as are the players on the screen of the theater to change the picture. The desired change must be conceived, dramatized, rehearsed, and performed in the theater of his mind. When the fourth function, the imagination, has completed its task of rehearsing the revised version of the play until it is natural, then the curtain will rise upon this so seemingly solid world, and the mighty four will cast a shadow of the real play upon the screen of space. Boom, screen of space. Men and women will automatically play their parts to bring about the fulfillment of the dramatized theme. Everybody will seem like an automaton to you. They will just come forth and you'll be like, this bridge of incidents is incredible. People are just stepping right into their part. They literally step into their part, and because you've dramatized and rehearsed, and in your imagination, and you even wrote it, you always hear verbatim the words you put into the play. You will hear verbatim, literally the same exact words you scripted. Get ready to be blown away. Because when it happens, you will be blown away. That is proof you are succeeding at this dramatization. The players, by reason of their various parts in the world's drama, become relevant to the individual's dramatized theme, and because relevant, are drawn into his drama. They will play their parts faithfully, believing all the while that it was they themselves who initiated the parts they play. This they do because thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, I in them, and thou in me. John 17:21-23. When Neville wanted to go to Barbados, he slept there, he was there in his imagination. His brother thought it was his brother's own original idea to send Neville a first-class ticket and a check for $50, a draft, as he called it. to go ahead and spend whatever he needed, buy a suit, make himself presentable, I guess, and get on the boat and enjoy his trip. And any chits that he might sign along the way for tipping or for other expenses, the brother would take care of when he arrived. So Neville had $50, which at that time was like, might as well have been $50,000 to us. But $50 would buy a suit, shoes, and would get him any expense he could care less or care for while he was whimsically cruising on down. But the brother thought it was his own original idea. Literally. But Neville's the one who slept in Barbados. I am involved in mankind. We are one. We are all playing the four parts of producer, author, director, and actor in the drama of life. Some of us are doing it consciously, right? While others unconsciously. It is necessary that we do it consciously, which is what we are talking about right here. You won't leave this channel without the ability of being able to do it consciously. This, I promise. And it's not my promise. If you take your hand out and point it at me, it's actually your promise. Only in this way can we be certain of a perfect ending to our play. Then we shall understand why we must become conscious of the four functions of the one God within ourselves, that we may have the companionship of God as his sons. Man shall not stay a man. His aim shall be high. His aim should higher be. For God will only gods accept as company. Angelus Silesius. Man should not stay a man. His aim should higher be. For God will only gods accept as company. In January of 1946, I took my wife and little daughter to Barbados in the British West Indies for a holiday. Not knowing there were any difficulties in getting a return passage, I had not booked ours before leaving New York. Upon our arrival in Barbados, I discovered that there were only two ships serving the islands, one from Boston and one from New York. I was told there was no available space on either ship before September. As I had commitments in New York for the first week in May, I put my name on the long waiting list for the April sailing. A few days later, the ship from New York was anchored in the harbor. Let me pause and interject here. Neville's brother chastised him for not making arrangements before he left New York, because that's where everything happens. So his brother already chewed his ass out for not arranging a return trip. Neville's telling the story in the lecture truthfully and more openly than he is in the book, but let's continue. A few days later, the ship from New York was anchored in the harbor. I observed it very carefully and decided that this was the ship we would take. It's just a decision. That's all. I returned to my hotel and determined on an interaction that would be mine were we actually sailing on that ship. I settled down in an easy chair in my bedroom to lose myself in this imaginative action. In Barbados, we took a motor launch or rowboat out into the deep harbor when we embark on a large steamer. I knew I must catch the feeling that we were sailing on that ship. I chose the interaction of stepping from the tender and climbing up the gangplank of the steamer. The first time I tried it, my attention wandered after I had reached the top of the gangplank. There it is simply stated. Your attention will wander as you try and impress upon your subconscious that which you desire. As Neville, and even in Neville's case in 1946, he'd already been doing this almost 15 years. I believe since 1933 when he first learned it. So 13 years later, he's still wandering with the mind upon going to sleep with the idea of the impression into his subconscious. You just bring it back. Focus. The first time I tried it, my attention wandered after I had reached the top of the gangplank. I brought myself back down and tried it again and again. I do not recall how many times I carried out this action in my imagination until I reached the deck and looked back at the port with the feeling of sweet sadness at departing. I do not recall how many times I carried out this action in my imagination until I reached the deck and look back at the port with the feeling of sweet sadness at departing. How many times must it take you? 70 times 7, if it's necessary. If it's necessary. I was happy to be returning to my home in New York, but nostalgic in saying goodbye to the lovely island and our family and friends. I do recall that in one of my many attempts at walking up the gangplank, in the feeling that I was sailing, I fell asleep. After I awoke, I went about the usual social activities of the day and evening. The following morning, I received a call from the steamship company requesting me to come down to their office and pick up our tickets for the April sailing. I was curious to know why Barbados had been chosen to receive the cancellation and why I, at the end of the long waiting list, was to have the reservation. But all that the agent could tell me was that a cable had been received that morning from New York offering passage for 3. I was not the first agent that had been called. I was not the first the agent had called, but for reasons she could not explain. Think about that. For reasons she could not explain. She had called, said that now they found it inconvenient to sell. Let me repeat the sentence. I was not the first the agent had called, but for reasons she could not explain, those she had called said that now they found it inconvenient to sell in April. We sailed on April 20th and arrived in New York on the morning of May the 1st. In the production of my play, sailing on a boat that would bring me to New York by the 1st of May, I played the 4 most important characters in my drama. If you are not listening tightly, this is a very, very, very important chapter. Neville's describing exactly how to use these 4 players, these 4 characters in your drama. As the producer, I decided to sail on a specific ship at a specific time. Playing the part of the author, I wrote the script. I visualized inner action which conformed to the outer action I would take if my desire were realized. That's going to the end. As the director, I rehearsed myself, the actor, in that imagined action of climbing the gangplank until the action felt completely natural. This being done, events and people moved swiftly to conform in the outer world to the play I had constructed and enacted in my imagination. Producer, author, director, and then actor. As the director, I rehearsed myself, the actor. That was 3 and 4. In that imagined action of climbing the gangplank until that action felt completely natural. He got to the point from the producer to the director to the producer, the producer, the author, the director, and the actor. Coming from me, you must remember there's 4 functions happening here. 4 things. Now, in your attempts at manifesting so far, have you considered this? That, of course, we have a producer. You, the producer. You have the idea. You have the author, who goes to the end when he writes the script, writing the ending. You have the director, whose job it is to rehearse the actor until it feels natural. Or are you, in your attempts at manifesting or falling asleep, to change the impression? Are you just doing the actor? Are you not directing by rehearsing? Are you not going over and over? Are you drifting asleep without coming back to the bottom of the gangplank? You're not directing the actor back to the beginning of that gangplank? Is there someone that has thought of the end result? Is the end result to be married, happy, in love? That is the author. Well, who's the producer? The producer wants the happy marriage and love in life. That's the producer. The author writes the ending. The director directs through scripting over and over the actor. Get back and go again. Cut, go again. Cut, go again. 4 functions of the mind for your manifestation. Producer, author, director, actor. It makes complete sense why possibly your manifesting has not been happening. You haven't seen it from these 4 different functions of your own mind. Write it. Get 4 3x5 cards and write it down. Here's a 3x5 card. Write it down. Here's another 3x5 card. Write it down. These are a dime a dozen. Not even that expensive. These things, let me get this in focus. You can write anything on them. Get 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Write down. Okay, what do we got again? Producer. Write your ending. Remember I told you about written goals. Author. Okay. Producer's the whole idea. Author writes the ending. Director, the next card. Rehearses. The actor who goes back again. Director rehearses the actor over. Bottom of the gangplank. Go back up again. Go back up again. Director and actor. You have a producer. You have an author. Break it down into these 3x5 cards. If you must, you must get this impression made. I am happy in love and married. Get this impression made. Get this impression made. Get your 3x5 cards. Get colored ones. Get blue ones. Get yellow ones. Get whatever you want. Get 4 of these and write down what your desire equals, just as he's describing. And then come back and leave a message. I saw the mystic vision flow and live and live in men and woods and streams until I could no longer know the stream of life from my own dreams. George William Russell, A.E. I told this story to an audience of mine in San Francisco, and a lady in the audience told me how she had unconsciously used the same technique when she was a young girl. The incident occurred on Christmas Eve. She was feeling very sad and tired and sorry for herself. Her father, whom she adored, had died suddenly. I love this story. Her father, whom she adored, had died suddenly. Not only did she feel this loss at the Christmas season, but necessity had forced her to give up her planned college years and go to work. This rainy Christmas Eve, she was riding home on a San Diego streetcar. The car was filled with gay chatter of happy young people home for the holidays. To hide her tears from those around about her, she stood at the open part of the front of the car and turned her face into the skies to mingle her tears with the rain. With her eyes closed and holding the rail of the car firmly, this is what she said to herself. This is not the salt of tears that I taste, but the salt of the sea and the wind. This is not San Diego. This is the South Pacific, and I'm sailing into the Bay of Samoa. And looking up in her imagination, she constructed what she imagined to be the Southern Cross. She lost herself in this contemplation, so that all faded round about her. Suddenly, she was at the end of the line and home. 2 weeks later, she received word from a lawyer in Chicago that she was holding $3,000 in American bonds for her. Several years before, an aunt of hers had gone to Europe with instructions that these bonds be turned over to her niece if she did not return to the United States. The lawyer had just received word of the aunt's death and was now carrying out her instructions. A month later, this girl sailed for the islands in the South Pacific. It was night when she entered the Bay of Samoa. Looking down, she could see the white foam like a bone in a lady's mouth as the ship plowed through the waves and brought the salt of the sea in the wind. An officer on duty said to her, "There is the Southern Cross." And looking up, she saw the Southern Cross as she had imagined it. Makes me want to cry, man. I could literally stop right now and cry because we all are doing this, but we just are good at hiding this from ourselves. But now we're not anymore. Now we have instruction, especially in this chapter. Oh my gosh, this chapter is a great chapter. In the intervening years, she had many opportunities to use her imagination constructively, but she had done this unconsciously. She did not realize there was a law behind it all. Now that she understands, she too is consciously playing her 4 major roles in the daily drama of her life, producing plays for the good of others as well as herself. Producing plays for the good of others as well as herself. Then the soldiers, when they had crucified Jesus, took his garments and made 4 parts, to every soldier a part, and also his coat. Now the coat was without seam, woven from the top woven from the top throughout. John 19:23. Wow. To every soldier made a part. To every soldier a part. That is very fascinating. Doing their duty, each soldier. I got to repeat the quote. It's the most profound part of this chapter. The whole chapter is incredible. My gosh, what an amazing chapter. Chapter 2, the 4 mighty ones, seed time and harvest. Goodness gracious. I mean, come on. Then the soldiers, when they had crucified Jesus, took his garments and made 4 parts, to every soldier a part, and also his coat. Now the coat was without seam, woven from the top throughout. Wow. What was your favorite part of that chapter? I am dumbfounded by this chapter, and I will be putting this to use. It's like a reminder, this great reminder you get. You just go, oh, wow. Yes. See, the idea here is we're taking the information and we're breaking it down consistently. If you're taking what your desire is, right here's your desire, and you're making that desire into an impression into your subconscious, you're simply doing this as you fall asleep. So you're doing what these 4 mighty ones are doing in a different form of it. You're, again, I better look at these 4 because I must commit them to memory. The producer, the author, the director, the actor. So you're the producer of what you want as an end result. The author writes the end result. The producer has the idea, boy, it'd be nice to be married. There's desire. The author writes the result. Oh, I know what I am. I am that I am. I am happily married, in love, having children with my wonderful family. The author writes the end. Now then, all it is up to what you're doing next is you're the director rehearsing the actor in his part, in his scene of this play over and over. The director says, do it again. The actor says, okay, I'm trying. I see myself married, coming home from my honeymoon, from Hawaii honeymoon. I'm walking across the threshold. Go again. You fell asleep by accident. Go again. You didn't do it right this time. Go again. Go start again. Start again. Start again. The director takes the actor and goes through the play over and over and over. It's already been written. The author wrote the ending. The producer had the idea in the first place. What a wonderful, wonderful chapter. Do they get any better? If they do, oh my, just hold on. All right, we'll see you in the next chapter. Neville Goddard, The Gift of Faith, Chapter 3, Awakened Imagination. Neville Goddard, Seed Time and Harvest, Chapter 3, The Gift of Faith. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offerings, but unto Cain and to his offering he had no respect. Genesis 4, 4 and 5. If we search the scriptures, we will become aware of a far deeper meaning in the above quotation than that which a literal reading would give us. The Lord is none other than your own consciousness. Say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. Exodus 3:14. I am is the self-definition of the Lord. Cain and Abel, as the grandchildren of the Lord, can only be personifications of two distinct functions of your own consciousness. The author is really concerned to show the two contrary states of the human soul, and he has used two brothers to show these states. The two brothers represent two distinct outlooks on the world, possessed by everyone. One is the limited perception of the senses, and the other is an imaginative view of the world. One is a limited perception of the senses, and the other is an imaginative view of the world. Sounds familiar, huh? Cain, the first view, is a passive surrender to appearances and an acceptance of life on the basis of the world without, out there. A view which inevitably leads to unsatisfied longing or to contentment with disillusion. Abel, the second view, is a vision of fulfilled desire, lifting man above the evidence of the senses so that to that state of relief where he no longer pines with desire. Ignorance of the second view is a soul on fire. Knowledge of the second view is the wing whereby it flies to the heaven of fulfilled desire. Come eat my bread and drink of the wine that I have mingled. Forsake the foolish and live. Proverbs 9:56. Wow. In the epistle to the Hebrews, the writer tells us that Abel's offering was faith and states the author, without faith, it is impossible to please him. Hebrews 11:6. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for the evidence of things not seen. Through faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. Hebrews 11:1 and 3. Cain offers the evidence of the senses, which consciousness, the Lord, rejects, because acceptance of this gift as a mold of the future would mean the fixation and perpetuation of the present state forever. The sick would be sick, the poor would be poor, the thief would be a thief, the murderer a murderer, and so on, without hope of redemption. The Lord, or consciousness, has no respect for such passive use of imagination, which is the gift of Cain. He delights in the gift of Abel, the active, voluntary, loving exercise of the imagination on behalf of man for himself and others. Let the weak man say, I am strong, Joel 3:10. Remember, God, all that is, I am, right here, and all of us are offshoots of that I am. Cain brings his view of his limited senses right here, the conscious of the objectified self. Abel, the desire in here, doesn't have limitations. In fact, sees without a limitation, sees what's potentially possible. The limitation of Cain, he uses what's in the outer world to make the definition for him, to then bring his new objectification with its limitations. Poor man is poor, a murderer is a murderer. All these things come to their own dead ends because Cain brings the limitation of what he sees in the world and what his senses show him here. Abel is the infinite potential to consistently ascend. Let man disregard appearances and declare himself to be the man he wants to be. Let him imagine beauty where his senses reveal ashes, joy where they testify to mourning, riches where they bear witness to poverty. Only by such active, voluntary use of imagination can man be lifted up and Eden restored. The ideal is always waiting to be incarnated. But unless we ourselves offer the ideal to the Lord, our consciousness by assuming that we are already that which we seek to embody, it is incapable of birth. Probably the most important sentence in quite a while. Listen to this sentence, man. Listen to it. The ideal is always waiting to be incarnated, but unless we ourselves offer the ideal to the Lord, bring it into our imagination, our consciousness, by assuming that we are already that which we seek to embody, it is incapable of birth. The Lord needs his daily lamb of faith to mold the world in harmony with our dreams. The Lord needs his daily lamb of faith. That's what you imagine as your desire, your aim, your goal, what it is you see as the end result. The Lord needs his daily lamb of faith to mold the world in harmony with our dreams. By faith, Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. Hebrews 11:4. Faith sacrifices the apparent fact for the unapparent truth. Faith holds fast to the fundamental truth that through the medium of an assumption, invisible states become visible facts. Very important sentences here. Faith sacrifices the apparent fact for the unapparent truth. Faith holds fast to the fundamental truth that through the medium of an assumption, invisible states become visible facts. Invisible states become visible facts. For what is faith unless it is to believe what you do not see? St. Augustine. Just recently, I had the opportunity to observe the wonderful results of one who had the faith to believe what she did not see. A young woman asked me to meet her sister and her 3-year-old nephew. He was a fine, healthy lad with clear blue eyes and an exceptionally fine, unblemished skin. Then she told me her story. At birth, the boy was perfect in every way save for a large, ugly birthmark covering one side of his face. Their doctor advised them that nothing could be done about this type of scar. Visits to many specialists only confirmed his statement. Hearing the verdict, the aunt set herself the task of proving her faith, that an assumption, though denied by the evidence of the senses, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Every time she thought of the baby, which was often, she saw in her imagination an 8-month-old baby with a perfect face, without any trace of a scar. This was not easy, but she knew that in this case, that was the gift of Abel which pleased God. She persisted in her faith. She believed was not there to be seen. She believed what was not there to be seen. She believed what was not there to be seen. The result was that she visited her sister on the child's 8-month birthday and found him to have a perfect, unblemished skin with no trace of a birthmark ever having been present. Luck, coincidence, shouts Cain. No, Abel knows that these are names given by those who have faith to the works of faith. Abel knows that these are the names given by those who have no faith to the works of faith. We walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. When reason and the facts of life oppose the idea you desire to realize, and you accept the evidence of your senses and the dictates of reason as the truth, you have brought the Lord, your consciousness, the gift of Cain. It is obvious that such offerings do not please him. Life on earth is a training ground for image making. If you use only the molds which your senses dictate, there will be no change in your life. You are here to live the more abundant life. So you must use the invisible molds of imagination and make results and accomplishments the crucial test of your power to create. Only as you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and continue therein, are you offering the gift that pleases. Life on earth is a training ground for image making. If you use only the molds which your senses dictate, meaning what you see, there will be no change in your life. You are here to live the more abundant life. You are here to live the more abundant life. Period. So you must use the invisible molds of imagination and make results and accomplishments the crucial test of your power to create. Only as you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and continue therein, are you offering the gift that pleases. Man, oh man, can I just have this already done? If it wasn't difficult to wield this and just get it done, if it wasn't difficult to get through this process, would it be worth it? Ask yourself that. When Abel's gift is my attire, then I'll realize my great desire. The prophet Malachi complains that man has robbed God. But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? It tithes and offerings. In tithes and offerings. Malachi 3:8. Facts based upon reason and the evidence of the senses, which oppose the idea-seeking expression, rob you of the belief in the reality of the invisible state. This is the invisible state, the one you're trying to get to. But faith in the evidence of things not seen, that's not seen yet. And through it, God calleth those things which be not as though they were. Romans 4:17. Call the thing not seen, assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. That there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts. If I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Malachi 3:10. What a wonderful quote. Once you start down this road and you start accomplishing these feelings into reality, that quote, you're gonna really understand, pour you out a blessing that there shall not be room enough to receive it, is exactly what you're gonna feel. You're gonna feel like there's not enough room. Because if I can literally have anything, I can focus on anything. I can focus on marriage, love, wealth, health, anything, be, have, do, anything. What do I want? What do I want to eat? Where do I want to eat it? Where in the world shall I go next? This is the story of a couple living in Sacramento, California, who refused to accept the evidence of their senses, who refused to be robbed in spite of a seeming loss. The wife had given her husband a very valuable wristwatch. The gift doubled its value because of the sentiment he attached to it. They had a little ritual with the watch. Every night as he removed the watch, he gave it to her, and she put it away in a special box in the bureau. Every morning she took the watch and gave it to him to put on. One morning the watch was missing. They both remembered playing their usual parts the night before, therefore the watch was not lost or misplaced, but stolen. Then and there they determined not to accept the fact that it was really gone. They said to each other, "This is an opportunity to practice what we believe." They decided that in their imagination, they would enact their customary ritual as though the watch were actually there. In his imagination, every night the husband took off the watch and gave it to his wife, while in her imagination she accepted the watch and carefully put it away. Every morning she removed the watch from its box and gave it to her husband, and he in turn put it on. They did this faithfully for 2 weeks. After their 14-day vigil, a man went into the one and only jewelry store in Sacramento where the watch would be recognized. As he offered a gem for appraisal, the owner of the store noticed the wristwatch he was wearing. Under the pretext of needing a closer examination of the stone, he went into an inner office and called the police. After the police arrested the man, they found in his apartment over $10,000 worth of stolen jewelry. In walking by faith, not by sight, this couple attained their desire, the watch, and also aided many others in regaining what had seemed to be lost forever. If one advances confidently in the direction of his dream and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. Thoreau. Wow. What a wonderful chapter. If that doesn't give you confidence in Abel, what would? Chapter 3, the gift of faith, opening quote. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offerings, but unto Cain and to his offering he had no respect. The Lord, imagination, had no respect to the idea of limitations here and or what the world was offering. But to Abel, the one with the vision about what he wants to be next, without looking at a finite ending of facts and figures or limitations of senses, Abel dreamed the dream, offered the infinite to the Lord. Your imagination is the Lord. Bring to the Lord Abel's infinite view of anything is mine. What do I want to experience? What do I want to be? What do I want to have? What do I want to do? What is it? Did I do my I am meditation? I am. Close the door to your closet. Ask what your desire is and start to have fun as you receive the answer. Have fun like Abel, seeing that there is no limitations. There's no limitations in the self-concept. There's no limitations that the world has. Abel, the unconscious, sees the infinite possibilities. You must be like Abel. That wristwatch testimony is amazing. Wow, okay. That was a great chapter. We'll see you in the next one. Neville Goddard, Seed Time and Harvest, Chapter 4, The Scale of Being. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it. Genesis 28, 12, and 13. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep fell upon Jacob, his inner eye was opened, and he beheld the world as a series of ascending and descending levels of awareness. It was a revelation of the deepest insight into the mysteries of the world. Jacob saw a vertical scale of ascending and descending values or states of consciousness. This gave meaning to everything in the outer world, for without such a scale of values, there would be no meaning to life. At every moment of time, man stands upon the eternal scale of meaning. There is no object or event that has ever taken place or is taking place now that is without significance. The significance of an object or event for the individual is a direct index to the level of his consciousness. You are holding this book, for example. On one level of consciousness, it is an object in space. On a higher level, it is a series of letters on paper arranged according to certain rules. On a still higher level, it is an expression of meaning. Looking outwardly, you see the book first, but actually the meaning comes first. Same exact thing applies to these videos. What attracted you to click on the video? There is no fancy thumbnail there. There's just my mug. What attracts you to click there is the deeper meaning that's calling you. You're actually calling it, but you get the point, what he's describing. Looking outwardly, you see the book first, but actually the meaning comes first. It occupies a higher grade of significance than the letter arrangement on paper or the book as an object in space. Meaning determined the arrangement of letters. The arrangement of letters only expresses the meaning. The meaning is invisible and above the level of the visible arrangement of letters. If there had been no meaning to be expressed, no book would have been written and published. And behold, the Lord stood above it. The Lord and meaning are one, the creator, the cause of the phenomenon of life. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. In the beginning was the intention, the meaning, and the intention was with the intender, and the intention was the intender. The objects and events in time and space occupy a lower level of significance than the level of meaning which produced them. All things were made by meaning, and without meaning was not anything made that was made. The fact that everything seen can be regarded to as the effect on a lower level of significance of an unseen higher order of significance is a very important one to grasp. Very, very fascinating. Our usual mode of procedure is to attempt to explain the higher levels of significance, why things happen, in terms of the lower levels, what and how these things happen. There it is. The ultimate paragraph. Why, how, what? The ultimate paragraph. Our usual mode of procedure, I'm going to go ahead and repeat it. Our usual mode of procedure is to attempt to explain the higher levels of significance, why things happen. In terms of the lower levels, what and how things happen. For example, let us take an actual accident and try to explain it. Most of us live on the level of what happened. The accident was an event in space. One automobile struck another and practically demolished it. Some of us live on the higher level of how the accident happened. What happened? Some of us live on the higher level of how the accident happened. It was a rainy night, the roads were slippery, and the second car skidded onto the first. The second car skidded into the first. That's the how. On rare occasions, a few of us reach the highest or causal level of why such an accident occurs. Then we become aware of the invisible, the state of consciousness which produced the visible event. In this case, the ruined car was driven by a widow who, though she felt she could not afford to, greatly desired to change her environment. Having heard that, by the proper use of her imagination, she could do and be all she wished to be, the widow had been imagining herself actually living in the city of her desire. At the same time, she was living in a consciousness of loss, both personal and financial. Therefore, she brought upon herself an event which was seemingly another loss. But the sum of money the insurance company paid her allowed her to make the desired change in her life. When we see the why behind the seeming accident, the state of consciousness, the state of consciousness that produced the accident, we are led to the conclusion that there is no accident. Everything in life has its invisible meaning. This, as I said in my last video or the one before that, was the most difficult pill to swallow in my first 4 or 5 years of studying this type of work. This body of work, in essence, was the most difficult. You create your own reality, Seth taught me. I learned from Seth. What does that mean? Everything that's happened to you has been created by you. What? I've had some pretty bad experiences. Yeah, but they were your creations. Really? Let's break this down because I want to know more. I don't believe you, but I want to know more. And then you go deeper and deeper and deeper into understanding what Neville just wonderfully stated. Wonderful, wonderful meaning of this whole concept. When we see the why behind the seeming accident, the state of consciousness that produced the accident, we are led to the conclusion that there is no accident. Everything in life has its invisible meaning. The man who learns of an accident, the man who knows how it happened, and the man who knows why it happened are on 3 different levels of awareness in regard to that accident. On the ascending scale, each higher level carries up a step in advance towards the truth of the accident. We should strive constantly to lift ourselves to the to the higher level of meaning, the meaning that is always invisible and above the physical event. But remember, the meaning or cause of the phenomena of life can be found only within the consciousness of man. Man is so engrossed in the visible side of the drama of life, the side of what has happened and how it happened, that he rarely rises to the invisible side of why it happened. He refuses to accept the prophet's warning that things which are seen were not made of things that do appear. I will repeat, that's Hebrews 11:3. Things which are seen were not made of things that do appear. Hebrews 11:3. His descriptions of what has happened and how it happened are true in terms of his corresponding level of thought. That's out here, the facts in the outer world. But when he asks why it happened, all physical explanations break down and he is forced to seek the why or meaning of it on the invisible and higher level. The mechanical analysis of events deals only with external relationships of things. Such a course will never reach the level which holds the secret of why the events happen. Man must recognize that the lower and visible sides flow from the invisible and higher level of meaning. Intuition is needed to lift us up to the level of meaning, to the level of why things happen. Let us follow the advice of the Hebrew prophet of old and lift up our eyes unto the hills within ourselves and observe what is taking place there. See what ideas we have accepted as true, what states we have consented to, what dreams, what desires, and above all, what intentions. It is from these hills that all things come to reveal our stature, our height, on the vertical scale of meaning. If we lift our eyes to the thee in me who works behind the veil, we will see the meaning of the phenomena of life. Events appear on the screen of space to express the different levels of consciousness of man. A change in the level of his consciousness automatically results in a change in the phenomena of his life. To attempt to change conditions before he changes the level of consciousness from which they came is to struggle in vain. Man redeems the world as he ascends the vertical scale of meaning. We saw in the analogy of the book that as consciousness was lifted up to the level where man could see meaning expressed in the arrangement of its letters, it also included the knowledge that the letters were arranged according to certain rules, and that such arrangements, when printed on paper and bound together, formed a book. What is true of the book is true of every event in the world. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Isaiah 11:9. Nothing is to be discarded. All is to be redeemed. Our lives ascending the vertical scale of meaning towards an ever-increasing awareness, an awareness of things of higher significance, are the process whereby this redemption is brought to pass. As man arranges letters into words and words into sentences to express meaning, in like manner, life arranges circumstances, conditions, and events to express the unseen meanings or attitudes of men. Nothing is without significance. But man, not knowing the higher level of inner meaning, looks out upon a moving panorama of events and sees no meaning to life. There is always a level of meaning determining events and their essential relationships to our lives. Their essential relationship to our lives. Here is a story that will enable us to seize the good in things seeming evil, to withhold judgment, and to act aright amid unsolved problems. Just a few years ago, our country was shocked by a seeming injustice in our midst. The story was told on radio and television, as well as in the newspapers. You may recall the incident. The body of a young American soldier killed in Korea was returned to his home for burial. Just before the service, his wife was asked a routine question. Was her husband a Caucasian? When she replied that he was an Indian, burial was refused. The refusal was in accordance with the laws of that community, but it aroused the entire nation. We felt incensed that anyone who had been killed in the service of his country should be denied burial anywhere in his country. The story reached the attention of the President of the United States, and he offered burial with full military honors in Arlington National Cemetery. After the service, the wife told reporters that her husband had always dreamed of dying a hero. That is a why. And having a hero's burial service with full military honors. Don't ignore the why. That's right there. When we in America had to explain why progressive, intelligent people like ourselves not only enacted but supported such laws in our great land of the free and the brave, we were hard put for an explanation. We, as observers, had seen only what happened and how it happened. We failed to see why it happened. I used to marvel. My teacher used to break down situations and tell me exactly what the motivation was in this couple going through this trauma. My teacher she would pierce right to the middle of what was motivating him or her in their dilemma or whatever the situation was. And believe me, there were thousands that we discussed. And I'm not messing with you, thousands. She would pierce right into the middle of where the motivation was, the why. She would pierce right into the motivation, which to me, I know now is the why. But at the time, I was just, what? I don't understand what's motivating this. And I would just try to learn from her. I couldn't fathom how, when I had my first consultation, as I described in a previous video, how did she know what she knew? And I asked her, how do you know this? And I learned it. And that's when I signed up to take classes with her. But what she was able to do at this point in her life, I was 25 when I met her. She was 68. She lived to 93 approximately. And it was 25 years that we spent together. And ultimately, after so many years, I don't even know the number now, but understanding the motivation was my ultimate goal. In that very first day, I needed to know how she knew what was the motivation, what was behind the veil. That's always been my entire goal, and I drove towards that all the time. And we talked thousands of hours, thousands. We as observers had seen only what happened and how it happened. We failed to see why it happened. It is a skill you can learn. You just need to study more of the why. That burial had to be refused if that lad was to realize his dream. Remember what the wife said. It was his dream. After the service, the wife told reporters that her husband had always dreamed of dying a hero and having a hero's burial service with full military honors. What was fulfilling what? Was the burial fulfilling his dream, or was the dream fulfilling the burial? Everything's now. The burial had to be refused if that lad was to realize his dream. We tried to explain the drama in terms of the lower level of how it happened, which explanation could not satisfy the one who had asked why it happened. The true answer, viewed from the level of higher meaning, would be such a reversal of our common habit of thinking that it would be instantly rejected. Who would who would just take that as the meaning of why it happened? Well, he wanted a full ceremonial burial with honors. Who would take that as the why? No. Most people are going to look at the war and say the war is where it happened. And then, of course, next is the refusal of his ethnicity, which has nothing to do with hindsight's 2020, which has nothing to do with nothing. Even at that time, someone who can go offer his life and it be taken and then to be refused was quite a hubbub. Repeating, the true answer viewed from the level of higher meaning would be such a reversal of our common habits of thinking that it would be instantly rejected. The truth is that future states are causative of present facts, as I was describing what caused what. The truth is that future states are causative of present facts. The Indian boy dreaming of a hero's death with full military honors was like Lady Macbeth, transported beyond this ignorant present, and could feel now the future in the instant. And by it he being dead yet speaketh, Hebrews 11:4. Yes, indeed. What causes the future? What causes the past? Very good example. Very, very, very wonderful example. Immediately my favorite, the scale of being, because in your present, when you have that desire to be married and with a family, responsible, having children, etc., and you're not that in your present, the causative is also from here, because we've said many times, when you get the desire and the urge inside of that desire, in the desire itself, that comes into your conscious self, comes into your subconscious too, but you have to make the impression to make it a 3D reality. But the causative is also by virtue of the fact that, ignore these facts, forget about the world, we're talking about consciousness. The fact is, the causative also comes from the fact of its existence, which is waiting for occupation, that gives the energy to this scenario, you making an impression to make it a reality. This fact, this occupation, this objective reality is waiting for your occupation. It's sending its energy back into you to make this impression. It's as real as you not even knowing what the heck's going on at all. You don't even know if you have a proper desire. You don't even know if you desire to be married, to be in love, to have a family, to have a husband, to have a wife. You don't even know. You could be completely, hey, I don't know. But once you awaken to the desire that's already in you, it's already in you. You're not brewing this up from nothing. It's already there. It's a big part of why you're here. It's a big part of why you're there. The desire's already in you for a special reason, and the occupation of this 3D self, it already exists. All of his works are done. All of his works are done. Your occupation here is an illusion. You think you're here with limitation when actually your reality's right there. Which one are you going to give into? Are you going to give into your desire? Are you going to ask yourself, what is my desire? Are you going to take that basic step? Yes. The answer is yes. You should be saying yes. Just do it. As the man told me when I did not know how to paint the friggin' fence. He looked at me and said, just do it. And if I didn't hear that phrase the next 4 years in the military a million times, that was basically the song of somebody giving you an order and you asking any question, they would say, just do it. And it was an order. It wasn't a request. Are you going to ask yourself, what is my desire? What is it I want to be, have, or do? Am I going to go in the closet, shut the door, do my I am, mellow out, chill out? Just calm it down. Take some breaths. Slow it down. I am. What is it I am? What am I? Who am I? let the first thing float up right into your mind. It just floats right up to the top and you go, oh, I think I like whatever it is. What is it you know you could do that no one else could do? What is it you know that you're very enthusiastic about that no one else is, but that you have an insight that no one else has, that you like? What is it that you like that you don't notice other people liking? You notice some faking it, but they're not making it, but you like it and you're good at it. What is that? What is your opportunity? It's literally waiting for your occupation. Just by this asking, just by this I am, you will discover that desire. Then all you have to do is aim towards it. Just aim right towards it. Then, slowly but surely, make the impression to your subconscious about you living a fulfilled life, doing that. This will magnetically pull itself right to you. You will be in this reality before you know it. I wish I knew that when I went into college right after the military. I wish, actually, I couldn't know that. I mean, I was destined to do all kinds of wonderful distractive stuff. Okay, distractions, love them. Don't we love them? That was a great chapter, man. Oh man, Seed Time and Harvest, chapter 3, the gift of faith. Wow. Wonderful. No, I'm sorry. That was chapter 4, the scale of being. I do not edit, so excuse the mispronunciation. Seed Time and Harvest, chapter 4, the scale of being. We'll see you in the next chapter. Neville Goddard, Seed Time and Harvest, chapter 5, the game of life. I can easier teach 20 what were good to be done than be one of the 20 to follow mine own teaching. Shakespeare. Whoa. With this confession off my mind, I will now teach you how to play the game of life. Life is a game, and like all games, it has its aims and its rules. In the little games that men concoct, such as cricket, tennis ball, baseball, football, and so on, the rules may be changed from time to time. After the changes are agreed upon, man must learn the new rules and play the game within the framework of the accepted rules. However, in the game of life, the rules cannot be changed or broken. Only within the framework of its universal and everlasting fixed rules can the game of life be played. The game of life is played on the playing field of the mind. In playing a game, the first thing we ask is, what is its aim and purpose? And the second, what are the rules governing the game? In the game of life, our chief aim is towards increasing awareness. An awareness of things of greater significance. And our second aim is towards achieving our goals, realizing our desires. As to our desires, the rules reach only so far as to indicate the way in which we should go to realize them. But the desires themselves must be the individual's own concern. The rules governing the game of life are simple, but it takes a lifetime of practice to use them wisely. Welcome to the party. The rules governing the game of life are simple, but it takes a lifetime of practice to use them wisely. Here is one of the rules. As he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. Thinking is usually believed to be a function entirely untrammeled and free without any rules to constrain it. But that is not true. Thinking moves by its own processes in a bounded territory with definite paths and patterns. Thinking follows the tracks laid down in one's own inner conversations. All of us can realize our objectives by the wise use of mind and speech. Don't forget, anytime he's mentioning these two things, the thing that separates us, humans, from all other creatures is mind and speech. The two things we want to get on top of and be able to be in control of our mind and our speech. Most of us are totally unaware of the mental activity which goes on within us. But to play the game of life successfully, we must become aware of our every mental activity. For this activity in the form of inner conversations is the cause of the outer phenomena of our life. Every idle word that man shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. Matthew 12:36 and 37. The law of the word cannot be broken. A bone of him shall not be broken. John 19:36. The law of the word never overlooks an inner word, nor makes the smallest allowance for our ignorance of its power. It fashions life about us as we, by our inner conversations, fashion life within ourselves. This is done to reveal us to our position on the playing field of life. There is no opponent in the game of life. There is only the goal. There is no opponent in the game of life. There is only the goal. Not long ago, I was discussing this with a successful and philanthropic businessman. He told me a thought-provoking story about himself. He said, "You know, Neville, I first learned about goals in life when I was 14, and it was on the playing field at school. I was good at track and had had a fine day, but there was one more race to run, and I had stiff competition in one other boy. I was determined to beat him. I beat him. It is true, but while I was keeping my eye on him, a third boy who was considered no competition at all won the race. That experience taught me a lesson I have used throughout my life. When people ask me about my success, I must say that I believe it is because I have never made making money my goal. My goal is the wise, productive use of money." The man's inner conversations are based on the premise that he already has money. His constant inner question, the proper use of it. The inner conversations of the man struggling to get money only prove his lack of money. In his ignorance of the power of the word, he is building barriers in the way of the attainment of his goal. He has his eye on the competition rather than on the goal itself. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves that we are underlings. Julius Caesar, Act 1, Scene 2. As the worlds framed by the Word of God, as the worlds were framed by the Word of God, so we as imitators of God, as dear children, create the conditions and circumstances of our lives by our all-powerful human inner words. Boy, oh boy, what a good way to describe them. All-powerful human inner words. Without practice, the most profound knowledge of the game would introduce no desired results. To him that knoweth to do good, that is, knoweth the rules and doeth it not, to him it is sin. In other words, he will miss his mark and fail to realize his goal. In the parable of the talents, the master's condemnation of the servant who neglected to use his gift is clear and unmistakable. And having covered one of the rules of the game of life, we risk failure by ignoring it. The talent not used, like the limb not exercised, slumbers and finally atrophies. We must be doers of the word, not hearers only. Since thinking follows the tracks laid down in one's own inner conversations, not only can we see where we are going on the playing field of life by observing our inner conversation, but also we can determine where we will go by controlling and directing our inner talking. Boom. Big. That is a big one. What would you think and say and do were you already the one you want to be? Begin to think and say and do this inwardly. You are told that there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets. And you must always remember that heaven is within you. And to make it crystal clear who God is, where where he is, and what his secrets are. Daniel continues, thy dream and the visions of thy head are these. They reveal the tracks to which you are tied and point the direction in which you are going. This is what one woman did to turn the tracks to which she had been unhappily tied in the direction in which she wanted to go. For 2 years, she had kept herself estranged from 3 people she loved most. She had had a quarrel with her daughter-in-law who ordered her from her home. For those 2 years, she had not seen or heard from her son, her daughter-in-law, or her grandson, though she had sent her grandson numerous gifts in the meantime. Every time she thought of her family, which was daily, she carried on a mental conversation with her daughter-in-law, blaming her for the quarrel and accusing her of being selfish. Upon hearing a lecture of mine one night, it was this very lecture on the game of life and how to play it, she suddenly realized she was the cause of the prolonged silence and that she, and she alone, must do something about it. Realization, isn't it wonderful? Just to realize. Recognizing that her goal was to have the former loving relationship, she set herself the task of completely changing her inner talking. That very night, in her imagination, she constructed 2 loving, tender letters written to her, one from her daughter-in-law and the other from her grandson. In her imagination, she read them over and over again until she fell asleep in the joyful mood of having received the letters. She repeated this imaginary act each night for 8 nights. 8 nights. How long would you do it? On the morning of the 9th day, she received one envelope containing 2 letters, one from her daughter-in-law, one from her grandson. They were loving, tender letters inviting her to visit them, almost replicas of those she had constructed mentally. By using her imagination consciously and lovingly, she had turned the tracks to which she was tied in the direction she wanted to go, towards a happy family reunion. A change of attitude is a change of position on the playing field of life. The game of life is not being played out there in what is called space and time. The real moves in the game of life take place within, on the playing field of the mind. Losing thy soul again to find, rendering toward that goal thy separate mind. Lawrence Hausman. Wow, what a wonderful chapter. I mean, there's some amazing things in here. We really have to hear what we are thinking, that inner conversation, and also the game of life is a lecture, and it is one to check out. And I remember the story very vividly, that she did get those letters, and everything turned around because she turned it around. That conversation in the mind, what is it saying? What's going on in there? It's the 3 fingers, me, myself, and I, pointed right back at you. The ultimate reminder. That was chapter 5, the game of life. Seed Time and Harvest. We'll see you in the next chapter. Neville Goddard, Seed Time and Harvest, chapter 7. Be ye wise as serpents. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Matthew 10:16. The serpent's ability to form its skin by ossifying a portion of itself and its skill in shedding each skin as it outgrew it caused man to regard this reptile as a symbol of the power of endless growth and self-reproduction. Man is told, therefore, to be wise as the serpent and learn how to shed his skin, his environment, which is his solidified self. Man must learn how to loose him and let him go, how to put off the old man. Lose his skin is lose that old self-concept. Put off the old man is when you make that impression and then you get the expression. You become the expression. So you put off the old man and you become the new man. Let me repeat the sentence. Man is told, therefore, to be wise as the serpent and learn how to shed his skin, his environment, which is his solidified self, man must learn how to loose him and let him go, how to put off the old man, how to die to the old, and yet know, like the serpent, that he shall not surely die. Man has not learned as yet that all that is outside his physical body is also a part of himself, that his world and all the conditions of his life are but the outpicturing of his state of consciousness. When he knows this truth, he will stop the futile struggle of self-contention, and like the serpent, let the old go and grow a new environment. Man has not learned as yet that all that is outside his physical body is also a part of himself. There's the three fingers, that his world and all the conditions of his life are but the outpicturing of his state of consciousness. Everything out there is coming from you. When he knows this truth, he will stop the futile struggle of self-contention and, like the serpent, let the old go and grow a new environment. Man is immortal, therefore he must die endlessly. For life is a creative idea. It can find itself in changing forms. Tagore. In ancient times, serpents were also associated with the guardianship of treasure or wealth. The injunction to be wise as serpents is the advice to man to awaken the power of his subtilized body, his imagination, that he, like the serpent, may grow and outgrow, die and yet not die, for from such deaths and resurrections alone, shedding the old and putting on the new, shall come fulfillment of his dreams and the finding of his treasures. As the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made, Genesis 3:1. Even so, imagination is more subtle than any creature of the heavens which the Lord God had created. Imagination is the creature that was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who hath subjected the same in hope. For we are saved by hope, but hope that is seen is not hope. For what a man seeth, why doth he yet hope for? But if we hope for that we see not, then do we with patience wait for it. Romans 8:20, 24, 25. Although the outer or natural man of the senses is interlocked with his environment, the inner or spiritual man of imagination is not thus interlocked. If the interlocking were complete, the charge to be wise as serpents would be in vain. Were we completely interlocked with our environment, we could not withdraw our attention from the evidence of the senses and feel ourselves into the situation of our fulfilled desire, in hope that that unseen state would solidify as our new environment. But there is a natural body and there is a spiritual body. 1 Corinthians 15:44. The spiritual body of imagination is not interlocked with man's environment. The spiritual body can withdraw from the outer man of sense and environment and imagine itself to be what it wants to be. And if it remains faithful to the vision, imagination will build for man a new environment in which to live. This is what is meant by the statement, I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. John 14:2 and 3. The place that is prepared for you need not be a place in space. It can be health, wealth, companionship, anything that you desire in this world. Now, how is the place prepared? You must first construct a lifelike a representation as possible of what you would see and hear and do if you were physically present and physically moving about in that place. Then, with your physical body immobilized, you must imagine that you are actually in that place and are seeing and hearing and doing all that you would see, hear, and do if you were there physically. This you must do over and over again until it takes on the tones of reality. When it feels natural, the place has been prepared as the new environment for your outer or physical self. The place has been prepared right there as the new environment for your outer or physical self. Now you may open your physical eyes and return to your former state. The place is prepared, and where you have been in imagination, there you shall be in body also. How this imagined state is realized physically is not the concern of you. Probably one of the most important sentences in all of this. How this imagined state is realized physically is not the concern of you. The natural or outer man. Not the concern of you, the natural or outer man. The spiritual body, on its return from the imagined state to its former physical state, created an invisible bridge of incident to link the two states. Although the curious feeling that you were actually there and that the state was real is gone, as soon as you open your eyes upon the old familiar environment, nevertheless, you are haunted with the sense of a double identity, with the knowledge that there is a natural body and there is a spiritual body. When you, the natural man, have had this experience, you will go automatically across the bridge of events, which leads to the physical realization of your invisibly prepared place. This concept, that man is dual and that the inner man of imagination can dwell in future states and return to the present moment with a bridge of events, to link the two, clashes violently with the widely accepted view about the human personality and the cause and nature of phenomena. Such a concept demands a revolution in current ideas about the human personality and about space, time, and matter. The concept that man, consciously or unconsciously, determines the conditions of life by imagining himself into these mental states leads to the conclusion that this supposedly solid world is a construction of mind, a concept which, at first, common sense rejects. However, we should remember that most of the concepts which common sense at first rejected, man was afterward forced to accept. These never-ending reversals of judgment which experience has forced upon man led Professor Whitehead to write, "Heaven knows what seeming nonsense may not tomorrow be demonstrated truth. Heaven knows what seeming nonsense may not tomorrow be demonstrated truth. The creative power in man sleeps and needs to be awakened," which is the whole subject and object and goal of why we are talking to each other. The creative power in man sleeps and needs to be awakened. Awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead. Ephesians 5:14. Wake from the sleep that tells you the outer world is the cause of the conditions of your life. Rise from the dead past and create a new environment. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? 1 Corinthians 3:16. The Spirit of God in you is your imagination, but it sleeps and needs to be awakened. In order to lift you off the bar of the senses where you have so long lain stranded. The boundless possibilities open to you as you become wise as serpents is beyond measure. Beyond measure. You will select the ideal conditions you want to experience and the ideal environment you want to live in. I mean, wow. Imagine. There's no limit to what you can imagine right now with that statement. Experiencing these states in imagination until they have sensory vividness, you will externalize them as surely as the serpent now externalizes its skin. After you have outgrown them, then you will cast them off as easily as the snake throws her enameled skin. The more abundant life, the whole purpose of creation, cannot save through death and resurrection. My, oh my. Let's repeat this paragraph because it is profound. The boundless possibilities, both open to you as you become wise as serpents, is beyond measure. You will select the ideal conditions you want to experience and the ideal environment you want to live in. Experiencing these states in imagination until they have sensory vividness, you will externalize them as surely as the serpent now externalizes its skin. After you have outgrown them, then you will cast them off as easily as the snakes throw her enameled skin. The more abundant life, the whole purpose of creation, cannot be saved through death and resurrection. God desired form, so he became man, and it is not enough for us to recognize his spirit at work in creation. We must see his work in form and say that it is good, even though we outgrow the form forever and ever. We throw off the skin when we make an impression, and then we become the expression. That's throwing off the skin. And we do it again, and we do it again, and we do it again, and so on, and so on, and so on. God desired form. He became man, us. And it is not enough for us to recognize his spirit at work in creation. We must see his work in form and say that it is good, even though we outgrow the form forever and ever. We must see his work right here. When we make the impression and we become the expression, that is his work. We must see that. He leads. You can see what the goal is. It isn't to have the bigger car. It isn't to have the better spouse, so on and so forth, the bigger bank or the bank account or the best health. It's to understand this process, this path of righteousness. That's where we see his spirit at work. This whole process is what you're after. And if it yields a more abundant life, so be it. That's exactly right. That's what we're given the gift of, is the most abundant life. The most abundant life. And then it never has to stay the same. You make another impression, you become another expression. It continuously moves because you're witnessing the Spirit at work in creation forever and ever. You're doing it consciously. You're becoming a conscious co-creator with all that is, with God, with I am. He leads through widening chambers of delight to where throbs rapture near an end that I recedes, because his touch is infinite and lends a yonder to all ends. And if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. John 12:32. And if I be lifted up, if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. If I be lifted up from the earth, which means come up in here, come up into the realization that you are him, I will draw all men unto me, means making an impression, becoming the expression. All men that come unto you are the ones that come over here and fulfill your bridge of incidence. If you're single, you're not happy, you're not married, and you want to be happily married in a relationship, you know the objective exists in you because you have the desire. You make the impression. The bridge of incidence is where you draw all men. People, the events happen for you. You'll just see things become in your favor to make this a reality. You'll see it and you won't believe it. You just won't believe it. You won't believe it how it unfolds. Most of the time, that person is right in front of you within arm's reach. Typically, you already know the person. When you make this decision, you already typically know the person. They're already in your world. They've been there waiting for you to make up your mind. If I be lifted up from the evidence of the senses to the state of consciousness I desire to realize and remain in that state until it feels natural, I will form that state around me and all men will see it. But how to persuade man this is true, that imaginative life is the only living, that assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the way to a more abundant life, and not the compensation of the escapist, that is the problem. To see as though widening chambers of delight what living in the realms of imagination means, to appreciate and enjoy the world, one must live imaginatively. One must dream and occupy his dream. Then grow and outgrow the dream. One must live and occupy his dream, then grow and outgrow, then grow and outgrow the dream into another. You've been doing this wonderfully already this far. Now you want to do it consciously. One must dream and occupy his dream, his, specifically you, then grow and outgrow the dream forever and ever. The imaginative man who will not lose his life on one level that he may find it on a higher level is nothing but a Lot's wife, a pillar of self-satisfied salt. I might have said that incorrectly. The unimaginative man who will not lose his life on one level that he may find it on a higher level is nothing but a Lot's wife, a pillar of self-satisfied salt. It even happens to me. My Simon Peter is only letting certain information in, and I have to be specifically, whoa, okay, I don't like to see that, but he's saying that that is also a thing, but I don't even like to admit that reality in the words. The unimaginative man who will not lose his life on one level, he won't lose this life on one level to find his better life, that he may find it on a higher level, is nothing but a Lot's wife, a pillar of self-satisfied salt. On the other hand, those who refuse form as being unspiritual and who reject incarnation as separate from God are ignorant of the great mystery. Great is the mystery. God was manifest in the flesh. In quotes, your life expresses one thing, and one thing only, your state of consciousness. Everything is dependent upon that. As you, through the medium of imagination, assume a state of consciousness, that state begins to clothe itself in form. It solidifies around you as the serpent's skin ossifies around it. But you must be faithful to the state. You must be faithful to the state. No one is going to do this for you. You must not go from state to state, but rather wait patiently in the one invisible state until it takes on form and becomes an objective fact. You must not go from state to state, but rather wait patiently in the one invisible state until it takes on form and becomes an objective fact. Patience is necessary, but patience will be easy after your first success in shedding the old and growing the new, for we are able to wait according as we have been rewarded by understanding in the past. Understanding is the secret of patience. What natural joy and spontaneous delight lie in seeing the world not with, but as Blake says, through the eye. Imagine what you, excuse me, imagine that you are seeing what you want to see and remain faithful to your vision. Your imagination will make for itself a corresponding form in which to live. All things are made by imagination's power. Nothing begins except in the imagination of man. From within out is the law of the universe. As within, so without. Man turns outward in his search for truth, but the essential thing is to look within. Man turns outward man turns outward in his search for truth, but that's outward in the world. But the essential thing is to look within, which is what we've been talking about. I am fishing, hunting. What is it I desire? Within. What's the answer to this question? The first thing on my mind in the morning is the answer. Within, within, within. Truth is within ourselves. It takes no rise. From outward things, whatever you may believe, there is an inmost center in us all, where truth abides in fullness and to know. Rather, it consists in opening out a way whence the imprisoned splendor may escape, than in effecting entry for a light supposed to be without. Browning, Paracelsus. Paracelsus is an amazing study. I think you will be interested in an instance of how a young woman shed the skin of resentment and put on a far different kind of skin. The parents of this woman had separated when she was 6 years old, and she had lived with her mother. She rarely saw her father, but once a year he sent her a $5 check for Christmas. Following her marriage, he did increase the Christmas gift to $10. After one of my lectures, she was dwelling on my statement that man's suspicion of another is only a measure of his own deceitfulness, and she recognized that she had been harboring a resentment toward her father for years. That night, she resolved to let go her resentment and put a fond reaction in its place. In her imagination, she felt she was embracing her father in the warmest way. She did it over and over again until she caught the spirit of her imaginary act, and then she fell asleep in a very contented mood. The following day, she happened to pass through the fur department of one of our large stores in California. For some time, she had been toying with the idea of having a new fur scarf, but she felt she could not afford it. This time, her eye was caught by a stone marten scarf, and she picked it up and tried it on. After feeling it and seeing herself in it, reluctantly, she took off the scarf and returned it to the salesman, telling herself she really could not afford it. As she was leaving the department, she stopped and thought, Neville tells us we can have whatever we desire if we will only capture the feeling of already having it. In her imagination, she put the scarf back on, felt the reality of it, and went about her shopping, all the while enjoying the imagined wearing of it. This young woman never associated these two imaginary acts. In fact, she had almost forgotten what she had done until a few weeks later, on Mother's Day, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. There was her father. As she embraced him, she remembered her first imaginary action. As she opened the package he had brought her, the first gift in these many years, she remembered her second imaginary action, for the box contained a beautiful stone marten scarf. Fascinating. Ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. Psalms 82:6. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Matthew 10:16. I love his testimonial examples in these chapters. They are wonderful. Be wise as serpents. I think I read today, I was reading something about the Lunar New Year. We are in the year of the snake right now, 2025, as we are recording this, February. and I think I was watching a video on YouTube, in fact, and I didn't watch the whole thing, but a few minutes of the beginning, and there was a part that said that they referred to the serpent as the little dragon, and that to make it a friendly object versus the dragon was the object in this celebration of the Lunar New Year. Then the serpent was also there. You had the dragon in this image, and it also showed the serpent in the same size as the dragon, but was called the little dragon. Just a little note there. Be ye wise as serpents. All right, chapter 7, seed time and harvest. Wow, what a good one. We'll see you in the next chapter. Neville Goddard, Seed Time and Harvest, chapter 8, the water and the blood. Except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. John 3:3. But one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and forthwith came there out blood and water. John 19:34. This is he that came by water and blood, even Jesus Christ, not by water only, but by water and blood. 1 John 5:6. According to the gospel and the epistle of John, not only must man be born again, but he must be born again of water and blood. These two inward experiences are linked with two outward rites, baptism and communion. But the two outward rites, baptism, to symbolize birth by water, and the wine of communion, to symbolize acceptance of the blood of the Savior, cannot produce the real birth or radical transformation of the individual, which is promised to man. Hint, hint, wink, wink. The outward use of water and wine cannot bring about the desired change of mind. We must therefore look for the hidden meaning behind the symbols of water and blood. The Bible uses many images to symbolize the truth. But the images used to symbolize, let me rephrase the sentence. Let me comb out the tangles. The Bible uses many images to symbolize truth, but the images used symbolize truth on different levels of meaning. On the lowest level, the image used is stone. For example, a great stone was upon the well's mouth, and thither were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the sheep. Genesis 29:2-3. They sank into the bottom as a stone. Exodus 15:5. When a stone blocks the well, it means that people have taken these great symbolical revelations of truth literally. When someone rolls the stone away, it means that an individual has discovered beneath the allegory or parable its psychological life germ or meaning. This hidden meaning which lies behind the literal words is symbolized by water. It is this water in the forms of psychological truth that he then offers to humanity. The flock of my pasture are men. Ezekiel 34:31. The literal-minded man who refuses the cup of water, psychological truth, offered him, sinks into the bottom as a stone. He remains on the level where he sees everything in pure objectivity, without any subjective relationship. He may keep all the commandments written on stone literally, and yet break them psychologically all day long. He may, for example, not literally steal the property of another, and yet see the other in want. To see another in want is to rob him of his birthright as a child of God. For we are all children of the Most High. To see another, this is a very, very important point. I was just making that about imagining lovingly for someone you might pass that is homeless, and you can do this with your eyes open. Imagine lovingly, which is an open-eyed meditation. To see another in want is to rob him of his birthright as a child of God. For we are all children of the Most High. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ. Romans 8:17. 17. To see another in want, that's you. To see another in want, that is you. You have the elevation of understanding here becomes when you get to this point, you're going to realize that all you're ever seeing is you. And if you see someone in any position, it is you that put them there. Don't even be confused, but it's easy to be confused. I put him there? Sure. Do you believe he's there? Then you put him there. You can see the responsibility that comes with all of this. It's very real and not real. If you put him there, you can unmove that stone. To know what to do about a seeming misfortune is to have the cup of water, the psychological truth that could save the situation. But such knowledge is not enough. Man must not only fill the water pots of stone with water, that is, discover the psychological truth behind the obvious fact, but he must turn the water, the psychological truth, into wine. This he does by living a life according to the truth which he has discovered. Only by such use of the truth can he taste the water that was made wine. John 12:9. A man's birthright is to be Jesus. He is born to save his people from their sins. Matthew 1:21. But the salvation of a man is not by water only, but by water and blood. Incidentally, before I forget, there's a wonderful Neville lecture, and I believe it's called By Water and by Blood, or By Water and Blood, one of those variations. It's a great lecture. Check it out. If I find it, I'll attach it in the description. This is a very, very good sentence. A man's birthright is to be Jesus. He is born to save his people from their sins. Matthew 1:21. But the salvation of a man is not by water only, but by water and blood. This is what we've been talking about the whole time. Once you realize you are of him, you can do the works of him. You make the impression, you become the expression. When you realize consciously that you're of him means you are Jesus, because you realize I am him. You do the works of him. Consciously create, consciously co-create. To know what to do to save yourself or another is not enough. You must do it. Just do it. I wish I could take you back to that day. Knowledge of what to do is water. Doing it is blood. This is he that came not by water only, but by water and blood. The whole of this mystery is in the conscious, active use of imagination to appropriate that particular state of consciousness that would save you or another from the present limitation. Outward ceremonies cannot accomplish this. Outward ceremonies cannot accomplish this. Let me repeat the sentence. The whole of this mystery is in the conscious, active use of imagination to appropriate that particular state of consciousness that would save you or another from the present limitation. Again, you're seeing another in a difficult situation. What is it you're doing with your imagination in that moment? Are you binding them to that place that they are supposedly in your vision at? Or are you going to free them from the bounds, the binds, the shackles that you just put them in? You can only imagine if one person does this, how much impact we're talking about. You can only imagine what if a couple does this, if two people in the same car, if two people as friends who know about this do it. You can only imagine the impact. If you do it, it's enough. You don't have to persuade anybody else to do this, but you can imagine like the couple from Your Faith is Your Fortune who were going to bed sleeping in about the same apartment. It turned out that it was a penthouse in their very own building that they got for a very reasonable price. He imagined the window. She imagined the mirrored wall, floor to ceiling. And it became in their reality, it objectified in their world. It was just two people on the same subject. There shall meet you a man bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him. And wheresoever he shall go in, say ye to the good man of the house, the master saith, where is the guest chamber where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples? And he will show you a large upper room furnished and prepared. There make ready for us. Mark 14:13, 14, and 15. Whatever you desire is already furnished and prepared. Whatever you desire is already furnished and prepared. It's already there. Your imagination can put you in touch inwardly with that state of consciousness. If you imagine that you are already the one you want to be, you are following the man bearing a pitcher of water. If you remain in that state, you have entered the guest chamber, Passover, and committed your spirit into the hands of God, your consciousness. You've passed over. Doing this, you pass over. A man's state of consciousness is his demand on the infinite storehouse of God. And like the law of commerce, a demand creates a supply. To change the supply, you change the demand, your state of consciousness. Could it be any more wonderful than that few sentences right there? A man's state of consciousness is his demand on the infinite the infinite storehouse of God. Same thing. And like the law of commerce, a demand creates a supply. To change the supply, you change the demand, your state of consciousness. What you desire to be, you must feel you already are. Your state of consciousness creates the conditions of your life, rather than the conditions create your state of consciousness. To know this truth is to have the water of life. But your Savior, the solution to your problem, cannot be manifested by such knowledge only. Did you catch the use of the word solution? I've seen Neville use puns quite handsomely throughout. But your Savior, the solution of your problem, cannot be manifested by such knowledge only. It can be realized only as such knowledge is applied. Not just hearers, but doers. Only as you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and continue therein is your side pierced, from whence cometh blood and water. Water being the knowledge, blood being the doing. In this manner only is Jesus, the solution of your problem, realized. Realized. For thou must know that in the government of thy mind thou art thine own Lord and Master, that there will rise up no fire in the circle or whole circumference of the body, of thy body and spirit, unless you awakest it thyself. Jacob Boehm. Jacob Boehm. God is your consciousness. His promises are conditional. Unless the demand, your state of consciousness, is changed, the supply, the present conditions of your life remain as they are. Do we need a more powerful few sentences? Oh my gosh, just swallow that one. Take your water and your wine and just douse yourself with these few sentences right here. God is your consciousness. We've gone over that. I and my Father are one. My Father is greater than I. My consciousness is His consciousness. God is your consciousness. His promises are conditional. Unless the demand, your state of consciousness, is changed, the supply, the present conditions of your life remain as they are. Your self-concept will be and remain if you don't change your consciousness. As we forgive, as we change our mind, the law is automatic. You can imagine how many, when you think of all the Neville definitions, and you think of the prayer known as Our Father, and you think about the trespassing in there, and you think about everything in that whole thing, you can just interpret it in a Neville way. And I don't know if I haven't come across yet where he has broken down that prayer, but it's fascinating because all the words in there, once you go through the Neville material and you understand his definitions and the interpretations, and look at that prayer again, it means something completely different. It means what it means now, is the point. Your state of consciousness is the spring of action, the directing force, and that which creates the supply. If that nation against whom I have pronounced turn from their evil, I will repent of the evil that I thought to do unto them. And at what instant I shall speak concerning a nation and concerning a kingdom to build and to plant it. If it do evil in my sight, that it obey not my voice, then I will repent of the good, wherewith I would benefit them. Jeremiah 18:8, 9, 10. And I was just mentioning the Our Father prayer. Isn't that funny? This statement of Jeremiah suggests that a commitment is involved if the individual or nation would realize the goal, a commitment to certain fixed attitudes of mind. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is a necessary condition in man's search for the goal. The story I'm about to tell you shows that man is what the observer has the capacity to see in him. That what he is seen to be is a direct index to the observer's state of consciousness. This story is also a challenge to us all to shed our blood, use our imagination lovingly on behalf of another. There is no day that passes that does not afford us the opportunity to transform a life by the shedding of our blood. Without the shedding of blood, there is no remission. Hebrews 9:22. One night in New York City, I was able to unveil the mystery of the water and the blood to a school teacher. I had quoted the above statement from Hebrews 9:22 and went on to explain that the realization that we have no hope save in ourselves is the discovery that God is within us. That this discovery causes the dark caverns of the skull to grow luminous. And we know that the spirit of man is the candle of the Lord. Proverbs 20:27. The spirit of man is the candle of the Lord. And that this realization is the light to guide us safely over the earth. His candle shined upon my head, and by his light I walked through darkness. Job 29:3. However, we must not look upon this radiant light of the head as God, for man is the image of God. God appears, and God is light to those poor souls who dwell in night. But does a human form display to those who dwell in realms of day? Blake. But this must be experienced to be known. There is no other way, and no other man's experience can be a substitute for our own. I told the teacher that her change of attitude in regard to another would produce a corresponding change in the other. That such knowledge was the true meaning of the water mentioned in 1 John 5:6. But that such knowledge alone was not enough to produce the rebirth desired. That such rebirth could only come to pass by water and blood. Or the application of this truth. Knowledge of what to do is the water of life. Knowledge of what to do is the water of life. But doing it is the blood of the Savior. In other words, a little knowledge, if carried out in action, is more profitable than much knowledge which we neglect to carry out in action. In other words, a little knowledge, if carried out in action, is more profitable than much knowledge which we neglect to carry out in action. That sounds most to me like a hearer and not a doer. As I talked, one student kept impinging upon the teacher's mind. But this, thought she, would be too difficult a case in which to test the truth of what I was telling her concerning the mystery of rebirth. All knew, teachers and students alike, that this particular student was incorrigible. The outer facts of her case were these. The teachers, including the principal and school psychiatrist, had sat in judgment on the student just a few days before. They had come to the unanimous decision that the girl, for the good of the school, must be expelled upon reaching her 16th birthday. She was rude, crude, unethical, and used most vile language. The date for dismissal was but a month away. As she rode home that night, the teacher kept wondering if she could really change her mind about the girl. And if so, would the student undergo a change of behavior because she herself had undergone a change of attitude? That's wonder. That's wonderful. That's a wonder of the teacher to just go outside of self and be selfless. And she's about to sacrifice herself. As you know, when you become persuaded upon another being something different, you sacrifice the self you were and become another self. So she's being selfless here. She's being heroic. I like that word, and I liked how Seth used it in his works too. Heroics. It's something to look up. The only way to find out would be to try. This would be quite an undertaking, for it meant assuming full responsibility for the incarnation of the new values in the student. Did she dare to assume so great a power, such creative, godlike power? This meant a complete reversal of man's normal attitude towards life from, I will love him if he first loves me, to, he loves me because I first loved him. This was too much like playing God. We love him because he first loved us. 1 John 4:19. We love him because he first loved us. But no matter how she tried to argue against it, the feeling persisted that my interpretation gave meaning to the mystery of rebirth by water and blood. The teacher decided to accept the challenge. And this is what she did. She brought the child's face before her mind's eye and saw her smile. That's what I did, This is my automatic version. I see, if I can see the face, then I can see that face smile. That's the version I use. Speaking of a testimonial for how you imagine lovingly or how you use the law, the one I use for homeless, for instance, as I'm driving off the freeway or at an intersection, is once I can see their face, then I can see that face smile. Then I can hear all the good spell, the God spell, the good news about their new opportunity, about the new place they're staying, about the new car that they have, about someone else cooking their food, and now doing something that only they can do that they love to do. And all of this celebration while they're smiling and telling me, and I hear their voice. And as we hug and high five, I celebrate. And then that moment's over. Then I go into the Sabbath and I forget about it completely. Then I don't see them again. That is how you use this. Exactly. The smiles of, I'm saying this very passionately because it works, number one. And number two is use your imagination to see their smile. I think you will be surprised when you try it, because the smile to me is the most natural light that we all have. A smile is a beautiful thing. I think it takes a lot of muscles, supposedly, to have a face form a smile. She brought the child's face before her mind's eye and saw her smile. She listened and imagined she heard the girl say, "Good morning." This was something the student had never done since coming to that school. The teacher imagined the very best about the girl, and then listened and looked as though she heard and saw all that she would hear and see after these things should be. The teacher did this over and over again until she persuaded herself it was true, and fell asleep. The very next morning, the student entered her classroom and smilingly, this word, smilingly, as I'm smilingly trying to say it, said good morning. The teacher was so surprised she almost did not respond, and by her own confession, all through the day she looked for signs of the girl's returning to her former behavior. However, the girl continued in the transformed state. By the end of the week, the change was noted by all. A second staff meeting was called, and the decision of expulsion was revoked. As the child remained friendly and gracious, the teacher had to ask herself, where was the bad child in the first place? For mercy, pity, peace, and love is God, our Father, dear. And mercy, pity, peace, and love is man, his child and care. The divine image, Blake. Transformation is, in principle, always possible. For the transformed being lives in us, and it is only a question of becoming conscious of it. The teacher had to experience this transformation to know the mystery of blood and water. There was no other way, and no man's experience could have been a substitute for her own. We have redemption through his blood. Ephesians 1:7. What a wonderful quote that is. Without the decision to change her mind in regard to the child and the imaginative power to carry it out, the teacher could never have redeemed the student. None can know of the redemptive power of imagination who has not shed his blood and tasted the cup of experience. Remember, innocent, experienced, awakened imagination. That was from The Pattern Man, 1968 version. Once read thy own breast right, and thou hast done with fears. Man gets no other light, search he 1,000 years. Matthew Arnold. Oh my goodness, what a wonderful, wonderful chapter. Excuse me, I love the example of the student. And I can't tell you, man, how many times, I'm sure I had teachers on my side like that one, because I myself was definitely a class clown, and I had a lot of fun, and I did a lot of standards in grade school where you have to stay after and write over and over and over and over and over and over and over these things I will not play and whatever, I don't know. I forget what they were. But yeah, and praise for those teachers that did use this kind of skill and this kind of care, this kind of selflessness. And we do it, we can do it, and we do it, excuse me, anytime we see another in any kind of predicament. We are taking people we see, when we see them in such a way that doesn't benefit them or us, we are taking them and we are crucifying them right here. When we see them not great, we are crucifying them right here. So it's our option to change what we are viewing, to change what we believe. Make the persuasion to self. Make the persuasion to self become the new self that believes they are not here, they are here for their benefit. Bring them up. You sacrifice yourself, they become also the new version of themselves, sacrificing their old self. One person. But if you just dilly-dally and don't even take concern, don't even imagine that you can do it, you just keep them bound, crucified, stuck. So think about that. You do have that power. What a wonderful, wonderful chapter. Seed Time and Harvest, chapter 8. The water and the blood. Look for the lecture. I'll find it. I should be able to find it. I'll attach it to the description. Just click below and you'll be able to hear that lecture. It's a great lecture. We'll see you in the next chapter. Neville Goddard, Seed Time and Harvest, chapter 9. Last chapter, a mystical view. And with many such parables spake he the word unto them, as they were able to hear it. But without a parable spake he not unto them, and when they were alone, he expounded all things to his disciples. Mark 4:33-34. This collection of parables, which is called the Bible, is a revelation of truth expressed in symbolism to reveal the laws and purposes of the mind of man. As we become aware of deeper meanings in the parables than those which are usually assigned to them, we are apprehending them mystically. For example, let us take a mystical view of the advice given to the disciples in Matthew 10:10. We read that as the disciples were ready to teach and practice the great laws of mind which had been revealed to them, they were told not to provide shoes for their journey. A disciple is one who disciplines his mind that he may consciously function and act on ever higher and higher levels of consciousness as you discipline your mind. Remember the 12 disciples. The shoe was chosen as a symbol of vicarious atonement, or the spirit of let me do it for you, because the shoe protects its wearer and shields him from impurities by taking them upon itself. The aim of the disciple is always to lead himself and others from the bondage of dependency into the liberty of the sons of God. Hence the advice, take no shoes. Accept no intermediary between yourself and God. Turn from all who would offer to do for you what you should and could do far better yourself. Earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God, but only he who sees takes off his shoes. Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Matthew 25:40. Every time you exercise your imagination on behalf of another, be it good, bad, or indifferent, you have literally done that to Christ. For Christ is awakened human imagination. Through the wise and loving use of imagination, man clothes and feeds Christ. And through the ignorant and fearful misuse of imagination, man disrobes and scourges Christ. Let none of you imagine evil in your hearts against his neighbor. Zechariah 8:17 is sound but negative advice. A man may stop misusing his imagination on the advice of a friend. He may be negatively served by the experience of others and learn what not to imagine. But that is not enough. Such lack of use of the creative power of imagination could never clothe and feed Christ. The purple robe of the Son of God is woven not by not imagining evil, but by imagining the good. By the active, voluntary, and loving use of imagination. You can't just sit back and go, oh, I don't have to worry about that. No, you actively participate. Whatsoever things are of good rapport, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. Philippians 4:8. King Solomon made himself a chariot of the wood of Lebanon. He made the pillars thereof of silver, the bottom thereof of gold, the covering of it of purple, the midst thereof being paved with love. Song of Solomon 3:9 and 10. The first thing we notice is King Solomon made himself. That is what every man must eventually do. Make himself a chariot of the wood of Lebanon. By chariot, the writer of this allegory means mind, in which stands the spirit of wisdom, Solomon, controlling the four functions of mind, that he may build a world of love and truth. And Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to meet Israel, his father. What tributaries follow him to Rome to grace in captive bonds his chariot wheels? If man does not make himself a chariot of the wood of Lebanon, then his will be like Queen Mab's. She is the fairy's midwife. Her chariot is an empty hazelnut. The wood of Lebanon was the mystic symbol of incorruptibility. To a mystic, it is obvious what King Solomon made himself. Silver typified knowledge, gold symbolized wisdom, and purple, a mixture of red and blue, clothed or covered the incorruptible mind with the red of love and the blue of truth. And they clothed him with purple. Mark 15:17. Incarnate, incorruptible, fourfold wisdom, clothed in purple, love and truth. The purpose of man's experience on earth. Very fascinating that purple and purpose are so close to each other. Incarnate, incorruptible, fourfold wisdom, clothed in purple, love and truth, the purpose of man's experience on earth. Love is sage's stone. It takes gold from the clod. It turns naught into aught. Transforms me into God. Angelus Silesius. Let's go with that one. What a wonderful final chapter, a mystical view. Oh my gosh. You must be a doer, not a hearer only. That's what I take out of this final chapter. And it's all over. Especially King Solomon made himself. Let me know what you dug out of that whole book. That's the end of that book, Seed Time and Harvest. We're going to see you in the next one.